Yo, welcome back to Trippy Commentaries and our fantasy football coverage for the 2014 NFL season. We have made it to week 9. There's a lot to talk about. We got a bad scare there with Tony Romo. Kyle.
Thought it was the end.
I mean, think about that. Not only is that devastating for the Cowboys if Romo goes down, but possibly it hurts DeMarco Murray, Dez Bryant.
I mean, we've been talking about this possibly happening, either to Romo or Murray. Very scary situation for Cowboys, but hey, Romo toughed it out, came back in. Fortunately, come through the victory, but
no, he looked terrible.
We'll see what happens this week. I know he's got an MRI that he did today, and
being Tuesday.
See how that how the outcome of that, what the outcome of that is going to be.
It sounds okay, but you never know. It's definitely scary when you're talking about Tony Romo, who had some pretty significant surgeries in the offseason.
Now, one thing to mention is Sweden came in and looked pretty decent. So if he goes down, you had Romo. It's possibly a guy you could switch out with because he's got the same weapons. And I tell you, he looked pretty poised. I mean, he was a good college quarterback. I thought he was in a bad situation and with the Browns there.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what he needed. He's learned how to play a little better now. He looked good. I mean, led them down to 2 scores. I mean,
yeah, it was definitely a mistake for Dallas to put Romo back in. They almost fucked it up immediately there with his fumble, which was within the 10-yard line. Somehow DeMarco Murray dove on the ball, got it back. Yeah. Of course, it went to overtime, and Romo did nothing good at all. But let's go ahead and move on to the Dolphins situation because they have some team chemistry issues, which is a little bit odd considering the guy we want to talk about, wide receiver Mike Wallace, is having a pretty good season so far. It's really not a true Mike Wallace season, but he's been getting a lot of touchdowns. The problem is his quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, is not playing good at all. We figured he would play a little bit better than this.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, I mean, this guy's coming off of, previous to this game, has only had 2 weeks in this season he hasn't scored a touchdown in.
Yeah.
So he's been very effective, and I've noticed his targets have been going down, and something's going on there. And if you're Tannehill, you have a talent like Mike Wallace who can run past most secondaries. Has kind of become even a better receiver, I feel, now than he was in Pittsburgh, with his talent alone, because I feel like now he's kind of becoming a possession receiver as well.
We had that 50-yard catch this week, so you definitely can tell he can still do that.
Yeah, so I mean, Miami is going to have to be able to use him, and I mean, it's maybe not the best idea for Wallace to let it be known and have problems in the locker room. They obviously need to handle it the right way, but the offense coordinator needs to understand that you need to get Mike Wallace the ball. He's a playmaker. He's pretty much your only playmaker you have on that offense. Right now, except for Miller,
and the running back,
yeah. So you got to get him. He needs to be getting 10 to 12 catches, or at least attempts, targets a week.
I know that a lot of people really like him right now going forward, and it's hard not to.
Yeah.
But it definitely worries me that you have the quarterback not playing good at all, on top of the fact that there's nobody else to divert the attention away. Hopefully Lamar Miller can get the running game going, and that's what's going to open up that number 1 wide receiver. But it's definitely going to get scary if Lamar Miller gets shut down. I'm not sure if Tannehill is going to be able to get it to Mike Wallace, of course, without that play action working so well.
And it's kind of out of character for Mike Wallace. He's not really a guy that's been known to really cause many problems. But I think if you're that good of a receiver and you're not getting the ball, you do need to make it known to your coaches. It's kind of surprising how it got out. You know how that is. There's people inside of there's people inside of organizations that let that kind of stuff out, but I don't really see anything. I think he's going to continue to be a good receiver, and props to whoever drafted him, and got him this year because he's really been good. Like I said, he's only had 3 weeks now out of the whole season that he hasn't scored a touchdown. So
that said, man, I would love to flip him and trade high here. If you can somehow trade him for like a Jordy Nelson, somebody like that, especially this week and next week where you have a lot of key bye weeks coming, maybe T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's bye week is next week. So what if you throw a Mike Wallace plus somebody else for T.Y. Hilton? You could even trade possibly Mike Wallace straight up for Reggie Wayne,
who's
injured
out
right
there.
now.
They'll take these trade offers. Trust me, I've pulled a few in my day.
Going into the playoffs, I would much rather have a wide receiver for Andrew Luck than a wide receiver for Tannehill, even though Mike Wallace is playing as good as he is.
Yeah, give Mike Wallace, an Andrew Luck, and he's going to be unstoppable.
Wow, that'd be crazy. But that said, hold on to him if you need a number one wide receiver, if you're desperate, because let's be honest here. There's a lot of guys that aren't coming through for us. But if you can flip him, especially for a better player, if you can maybe look at one of these guys on a bye week, like the Colts wide receivers, maybe you can actually take advantage of Mike Wallace by making it even better. What would you say going forward? I would put him as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, good wide receiver 2. Might have his moments where he is on borderline wide receiver 1. But in most games this season, he's definitely been right in that wide receiver 2 category.
Speaking of wide receiver 1s, we definitely got to talk about Calvin Johnson and really the state of the best wide receiver in the league. It's kind of funny how we're waiting for Calvin Johnson. Another guy we're waiting for is Josh Gordon.
Yep.
They're really not too far away from each other at this point. They almost have close value here, and nobody's talking about that. But that said, Calvin Johnson, he will be back.
It's a great timing for them to have a bye week for Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
Gets this bye week. He doesn't have the pressure of trying to practice, really push it hard. He doesn't have that pressure of people wanting him to get on the field. He's got this whole week now. He can really, really heal up and have a good full week of practice with his team. Get him right back in the mix. Calvin Johnson's going to get right back on the horse, right where he left off from before he got hurt. He's the best receiver in the league by far.
One of the greatest parts about having Calvin Johnson is just how good the Lions are doing. They squeaked out a win against Atlanta last week, and they need Calvin Johnson to come back because even though they're winning these games, they really need him back, man. That's going to give Golden Tate even more room to operate. The running backs are disappointing.
Actually, and it might even help Calvin Johnson now right out the gate because Golden Tate has showed that he can definitely take care of things on his own. He's been ridiculously good. So you're a defense, you got to look for both these guys now. That makes it really hard. Look for those tight ends to start getting more looks.
Mm-hmm. So definitely try to trade for Calvin Johnson if possible, especially if you know the owner of him is a little bit down or possibly panicking and needing a win immediately, because that bye week, as you said, is coming in so perfect that I think we could probably trust him going into the fantasy playoffs.
Now, another guy to mention here, as we're talking with the Lions, Theo Riddick. It's a guy that we had talked about last week that you had liked. Wanted him on FanDuel, but for some reason he is not listed on FanDuel last week.
FanDuel, of course, is PPR, at least half-point PPR, so not only do you get points for the catches, but he scored the touchdown. He would have been a pretty good pick.
A guy like Theo Riddick with Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate is going to get a lot of one-on-one good looks, a lot of mismatches. This is a guy going forward. They've already mentioned that they want to use him like a Darren Sproles. Can definitely put up some points. He's probably available in everybody's league right now. Definitely a guy you might want to stash if you're PPR. Perfect, guy there in the slot you can use.
For sure. I mean, honestly, I think they want to use him like a Reggie Bush. I think he's going to replace Reggie Bush because Bush, other than that one impressive run he had earlier on in the season, really has been non-existent when it comes to injuries and even on-the-field play.
Yeah.
Both of us have seen how good Reggie Bush can be for that one play, any given game. But really, if you think about it, you do have to step back and say, man, even though that one play might win it for you, there's all these other plays that he's not helping out. Maybe it's getting to that point where Reggie Bush is not going to be good for us anymore. In this case, it looks like Theo Riddick is straight up replacing him.
Yeah, and that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, I hate to say it because I do like the way Reggie Bush runs, but I think he's soft. I think you've noticed it. I mean, that's probably what made him such a good running back in college. He didn't want to get hit, so he'd do everything possible not to get hit. And you're kind of seeing the NFL. I mean, he finally learned how to be more of a downhill runner, but he'll have one good run, get hit pretty hard, and he's off on the sideline for 3 or 4 plays. That's you don't want that in your running backs.
I mean, I love him as a running back. I think he's had some great seasons, and he's pretty much become underrated as an NFL player as far as his career is concerned. But he's had a lot of injuries at the same time. Even going back to the Saints, days, all these injuries.
It was
piling
happening
up
back there too. Every time he get hit, he'd come out, and it's kind of been unfortunately, it's kind of been the downfall of his career is that he never really got tough enough to be a featured back because he definitely has a skill. I mean. He has some of the craziest highlight films you could ever watch in college. Some of his runs he had were absolutely ridiculous. We've seen him kind of pull it off in the NFL, but just not on a consistent basis.
I mean, he's won both of us fantasy championships, really, with big games in the fantasy playoffs. but
back-to-back
that's
years.
now in the past, and it's almost like we can officially say Reggie Bush is done gotta.
Yeah.
Would you drop him at this point? He's
I
pretty
would.
much
Yeah, I
droppable.
would. I mean, I'm surprised somebody didn't try to trade for him. I'm surprised the Lions weren't trying to get rid of him for for cheap. But
Well, they are trying to go for the Super Bowl. The Lions were my Super Bowl pick last year. Didn't go well. They bombed at the end. And now they're looking more like a Super Bowl contender this year with that great defense. They're stepping up.
now, one thing to mention is that with Reggie Bush, the year that I had him when he's playing for the Dolphins, he sucked. He stayed on my bench pretty much all year. It came to the playoffs. I had to use him, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like week 14, 15, he is the starter all of a sudden, and he killed it. He had like 25 points.
Could it happen again? Very easily if we think
That's
about
the only
this.
reason I would keep him
If
on
Joyke
my
Bell
bench.
goes down, Reggie Bush is the starter, not Theo Riddick.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'd keep him on my bench if you have the available
Good
slot.
point.
Just to hold him on.
He
Hold
pulled it
on
off
to
the
him.
same way for me, of course. Only the year I had him, I actually traded for him halfway through the season because earlier in the year he really wasn't that great. The owner of him didn't care too much. I think I traded Laurent Robinson for him. Those of you who remember blew up for the Cowboys in one season,
Yep.
and worked out. So hey, we could have another Reggie Bush blow up at the end of the season, but that seems highly unlikely. We're from a standpoint at this point that it looks like he's done, and Theo Riddick is just a better option in Detroit. It's really interesting because that team is so good, so they're going to have to use the Calvin Johnsons and the running backs to the fullest extent, and we're going to have to take advantage of it.
Look for Stafford owners, man. You gotta expect that Stafford's numbers are gonna come back up with Calvin Johnson. I know he's had some decent numbers, but I mean with Calvin Johnson, he's definitely gonna get back in that top 5 category probably.
Talk about a guy to trade for. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. This is definitely a guy to trade for, guys. I mean, he is going into a bye week, so the owner of him is probably not going to ask for that much, especially if you already have a decent quarterback. One guy that's kind of worrying me here is Drew Brees. Maybe you can even, kind of switch it off and get something back. Like maybe the person thinks it's a huge upgrade to get Drew Brees over Matthew Stafford because Stafford hasn't had Calvin Johnson. But at this point, when you have Calvin Johnson back, you're going to have Golden Tate and Riddick, who's also a receiving threat. Mm-hmm. Maybe you trade Drew Brees for like Stafford and another player. Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Drop in the comments if you guys have any ideas. I know the trade deadline is getting pretty close here.
It's coming close, man. You got to make your moves now.
Let's go ahead and move on to the Jets, Kyle. This is definitely a team in the news right now. Looks like Geno Smith, talk about Dungada. I mean, he's benched for Michael Vick, who really doesn't have much of a future in the NFL. Mm-hmm. He's been around forever. The Jets are in a state of flux, but they have a lot of players that we're using. I mean, Chris Ivory is almost a running back one at this point. He's been so productive for us. Eric Decker's been really consistent. We all know they just got Percy Harvin. Yeah. What are you making out of this, Kyle?
Oh, this is going to be interesting to me because, like I had said earlier, I thought Michael Vick should have started the season. I would like to see them use him like the Eagles used him. Have him start the season off and let Geno Smith still kind of learn and see things from the sidelines for once and be able to kind of experience that and see what Mike Vick does wrong and be able to call it out. And then when he goes in the game, he knows, hey, I saw him do this wrong, so I'll make sure I do it right. It worked for Nick Foles. Nick Foles came on; he was ridiculous after that for the rest of that season. So I wanted to see that from the get-go. So now, last time Mike Vick came in, it was during the game, which he probably wasn't really preparing much for for that game leading up to that, and he looked like shit. I mean, it's most quarterbacks you put in that situation are gonna look that way. I'd like to see what Mike Vick can do with weeks full of practice, working with everybody. Them going with an offensive plan geared for him. And he can definitely surprise somebody for one game. I mean, he's probably going to get injured the week after or the week after that.
Possibly this week.
But we saw Mike Vick last year put a couple weeks together that were pretty ridiculous. So he definitely has the ability to do it. So I'd like to see what happens here. We'll see if Mike Vick can come together with this offense, these weapons that you mentioned. I like what they have there, and I think he can definitely has the opportunity to put up some numbers. Fantasy-wise, I mean, it's a tough call. If you were really desperate, maybe it's a straight boom or bust. Probably going to be more bust because I can't really put anything from me personally into the Jets right now. I'm not buying anything into the Jets.
Except for Ivory. You have no choice to start Ivory. Running backs are in disarray.
Yeah, Ivory, but even Ivory at times, it's like, they don't use him right, and, I'd like to see him get more carries in a game. They don't give it to him. So it's boom or bust, but I think Mike Vick could possibly put up some numbers. You get a defense that doesn't really prepare correctly for him, and he finds a way to beat him. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, guys. I know most of you are going to be forced to start the likes of Eric Decker and, of course, Chris Ivory. I mean, you definitely got to start Ivory at this point. We'll see how Mike Vick can do this week. This is really a big week of judgment for the Jets. I think that Mike Vick's going to get injured, of course, and we won't see the last of Geno Smith. But it's such a bad call for these guys to say Geno Smith is done as far as in his career. I mean, he's never had that chance, like you said, to look from the sideline. He deserves a chance to grow.
Yeah.
And I feel like second chances, are possible here.
I mean, everything you heard about this guy going up to the combine before the draft even happened was this guy needs to learn a lot on how to be an NFL quarterback. You don't draft a guy like that and throw him straight in, in there.
Which is what they did.
Just threw him straight in the fire and expected him to know how to get out of it. And I just feel, I always feel that's unfair for some of these quarterbacks. Because a guy like Geno Smith, he has a lot of talent. He's almost like a Michael Vick. Mike Vick first came in, he didn't understand how to read defenses properly. He just used his legs to get out of it. Geno Smith trying to do the same thing. It's just not working. Everything in New York right now is just not working for the Jets. And I like to see what Mike Vick can do here. Geno Smith might be able to recover off this, but it's just not good. You never want to take that quarterback, that young quarterback who's starting, and then bench him and then try to bring him back and think that that's all, it's going to help him. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Special shout out to all you Jets fans out there. We definitely feel for you guys. We know Rex Ryan, he's going to be fired at this point. There's really no saving him unless he wins out. That's not going to happen.
I think it's the best thing for the Jets.
Probably. I'm sure we'll see Rex Ryan like on ESPN or something next season.
Hope not.
But we'll see where they go from here. They got a lot of growing to do. The whole Percy Harvin situation, that didn't look too great last week. He didn't impress me at all. They were saying he couldn't even get open. So, the Jets have some pieces. Let's not forget that defensive line with Richardson and Wilkerson.
Very good.
It's ridiculous.
I like the defense. I think their defense is playing
backs,
decent, but their defense is just getting put in all these bad situations. All the turnovers the offense is creating really put your defense in bad situations. When that happens, when your defense is like, oh, here goes our offense again, fucking up, it really beats them down even mentally, and it makes them start playing worse as well.
Yeah, definitely props to you Jets fans. Hopefully you guys can bounce back soon. You have some parts, but the quarterback is the most important part, and that is completely jacked up there in the Big Apple. At least from the Jets' perspective, it seems like Eli on the other side is kind of getting it together. It's too bad he lost Victor Cruz because I felt like that was a key component to that offense there for the Giants. Definitely like Odell Beckham.
Stepping up.
Ruben Randall going forward, coming out of the bye week there. Yep. We really want to get Rashad Jennings back in that offense because that's another threat in the passing game, and that's going to get those other guys some easier looks.
Oh, yeah.
One guy I wanted to ask you about here, Kyle, is Deshaun Jackson. He's had an interesting season so far,
really,
especially with all the quarterbacks switching out. I mean, we had Colt McCoy show up last Monday, and Deshaun Jackson showed up with him. He had some big plays. They took out the Cowboys. And this is a guy where I just don't know how to rank him because, Colt McCoy's still in there, and we don't know what the hell's going on moving ahead.
Yeah, well, he's pretty much on pace to do exactly what he did last year and set all career highs for his career.
Really?
Totals and everything he did. I mean, this guy he's almost like quarterback proof. It doesn't matter what quarterback's in there. This guy is running so fast. He's burning people downfield. He just needs to have somebody that can get the ball out in front of him so he can go chase it down. He's playing really well. I mean, if you think about it, he's the only guy. Garcon's really been hit or miss. Hasn't been real great on the season. Deshaun Jackson has been the only one in that offense to really have consistent weeks and just be able to put up big numbers. Obviously, there's going to be the weeks there where nobody in the offense does anything, with the quarterbacks getting injured and all that stuff. It's a really
kind of
crazy
wish they would keep McCoy in at this point.
But I mean, Deshaun Jackson's a guy that I would be happy to have in my lineup, and he's been killing it so far. So.
Yeah, I think we can definitely trust him. Mike Wallace, who we talked about earlier, is pretty similar with, with that quarterback situation and really their skill set as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason, I like Deshaun Jackson more, which
I
is
do
kind of
too.
weird considering his quarterbacks are no better than the Miami guys. And there's more weapons to spread it around, so there's more touchdown threats to take away from Deshaun Jackson. It's just Jackson seems to, like you said, have a big game no matter what. He's pretty much officially quarterback proof. And I really like him ending out the season. That would be
Yeah.
really something if he can beat out his stats from last season because he really did blow up. Last thing we got to talk about, another team chemistry situation in Chicago here. In this case, Jay Cutler. Brandon Marshall is starting to get heated at his boy there. They go way back. They used to play back in Denver together. So you think team chemistry would not be an issue, but it is. What do you make out of this? As a lot of people missed out on Brandon Marshall's best game. It was the Sunday night game where he wasn't supposed to play. He got a 3-touchdown game. So a lot of these Brandon Marshall owners started him in every game but that one, and they're starting to question what they have.
Well, I mean, he never said Jay Cutler's name, and that's what Jay Cutler said. So I don't really see too much into it. These guys are really close. I mean, they really are pretty damn close to one another. So I mean, that's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. People have close friends, and most people with brothers can relate. You guys are playing football in the backyard, and you guys, after you're done playing, you're talking shit to each other, and, the next day, it's like nothing ever happened. I see that kind of sticking with this. I mean, and everything Brandon Marshall said there was pretty damn accurate. I mean, it wasn't like he was making anything up. He was pretty much spot on, and he was pretty much spot on what they need to do to get better. And I think Jay Cutler probably would agree with him. And Jay Cutler can't be happy with his play lately. We thought Jay Cutler was finally going to break, the mold of this typical Jay Cutler. We always knew he was going to turn the ball over. We thought maybe there was a chance that, with this year, with his weapons that he has, that he was really going to step it up. And for a moment there, he looked pretty good, but he's just kind of falling back on the same Jay Cutler. So it's tough for Brandon Marshall owners because, like you said, that 1 week where we didn't think he was going to play, he goes off, and then other weeks where he says he's 100% healthy, he's good to go. He gets 2 catches in the game. Obviously, has a lot of competition there with Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey I like a lot more right now than Brandon Marshall. He's playing way more consistent. I just feel that because him and Jay Cutler maybe now are getting a little more chemistry going on the field, as to where last year when Jay Cutler was in, he only wanted to pretty much go to Brandon Marshall. So I think that's kind of swaying a little bit, hurting Brandon Marshall's numbers a little bit. He's getting a little upset. Jay Cutler's probably going to hook him up this week, though.
I really like that Chicago offense going forward, mainly because their defense sucks so much, and they're going to have to score.
And Forte's been killing it.
Yeah, Forte, no one's taking him out of their lineup, that's for
Hell
sure.
no.
He's pretty much a top 3 running back. As far as the wide receivers, they're going to be down, so I think they're going to get their balls. Martellus Bennett continues to be just a mighty tight end that nobody's talking about nearly enough. He's scoring at a rapid rate, and he's keeping up with Julius Thomas. We know Jimmy Graham's on he's kind of injured right now, so he's a little bit behind. We'll see if he can catch up with Marty B ending out the season.
Watch out for Gronkowski, too, man. He's going to get back in that mix,
Gronkowski
too.
jumped up there quick.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Make sure to drop any comments if you have any questions heading into this week. I know it's definitely a must-win situation, so good luck. Make sure to stay tuned to our Trippy Commentaries fantasy football coverage. And, as always, I'm RJ for FPS Kyle. Stay trippy, my friends.